Now the Switch 2 has been revealed and a new Mario Kart is already confirmed, it's only a matter of time before we also learn about the next 3D Mario. So before the Direct in April, I thought it'd be good to look back one last time at Bowser's Fury, because it presents some interesting ideas for what the next mainline Mario could look like. Before we can really dig in though, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Calling the game's structure open world isn't really accurate, like at all, and not even in like a nerdy semantic way. I also wouldn't call the game open zone or something. Bowser's Fury is pretty much level based, straight up. You can clearly mark each one on a map, and they all have self-contained goals to complete. Leaving them is required to refresh the objectives, but the levels generally aren't close enough together for any unintended or interesting interplay to occur. Of course, the major difference compared to something like Mario 64 is there's no hub world or loading screens. You just walk over to the next level, and along the way you might find a small challenge to complete. The seams are completely removed, which allows for the player to remain in a flow state of completing objectives and collecting shines. There is essentially never downtime. You're always off to the races and doing as much platforming as you can shove down your gullet. This structure makes the game a lot of fun to blast through, and is also how I expect future 3D Mario games to build off of Bowser's Fury. Mario is not going to explore a giant open world where he defeats the 4 divine castles. Instead, he's going to explore a continuous one. Now that might sound like nerdy semantics, but what I'm getting at is the fundamental design for individual levels won't change. Like previous games, you'll still platform in semi-open areas and unlock new ones in a linear order. Just now, there's no hub world, and major levels will be connected by smaller platforming challenges. On paper, I think that's really cool. That's not to imply that Bowser's Fury perfectly executes this romantic vision of seamless play. Let's ignore the giant bodies of water for a minute and focus on the land. Zones 1 and 3 of the game have these central flat hubs which connect all the levels. They also contain some individual challenges and are where you go to grab the Super Bell. In general, they're fine, but I can't help but wonder if a bit more could have gone into them, like maybe some more intricate platforming sections, or if it would have been better to have the levels much closer together. I will give credit to Zone 2, which has the neat idea of laying out its levels in a linear path. This further reinforces the idea that you're simply traveling to the next level, and it makes it easier to have many levels between them, like these jumping sharks. Moving on to the macro scale, obviously the map is mostly made up of empty water. Despite that, Plessy might actually be the best showcase of having miniature levels in between main ones. Her challenges naturally connect faraway areas and give you something to focus on whilst traveling. This is on top of her movement being fun to time in the first place. It's surprisingly well balanced. There's seemingly always a shine to grab while surfing, which kinda makes the game better at connecting levels on a large scale than a minor one. Now, I have a point to make, but first it requires me to rattle off a bunch of minor criticisms. So here we go. Some of the areas can be annoyingly out of the way, mainly this level in the bottom left corner. Revisiting levels mostly works, but sometimes shines can feel samey. Plessy is fun, but you can technically run out of things to do on her. And finally, there's a low amount of visual variety. I'm not the first, nor will I be the last person to point out some of these things. However, the important thing to acknowledge about each of these criticisms is they stem from the scope of the project. At the end of the day, it's a game made using mostly recycled 3D world assets, is fairly short, and is also limited by the Switch's hardware. For a hypothetical new game on the Switch 2, a lot of these problems would probably disappear. Before we talk about that hypothetical game though, I want to acknowledge the one thing I've somehow gone this entire video without acknowledging. Bowser, who, in my opinion, doubled as the developer's answer to quite literally all of these problems. Whenever Bowser shows up, he adds a hectic new layer to the entire game. These empty hubs I criticized become a focal point for players to rush towards. He recontextualizes levels you might have already visited by introducing new terrain and becoming a dynamic obstacle, both of which also apply to Plessy, giving her new opportunities. Finally, he completely changes the vibe of the entire game, adding just that tiny bit more variety. Most of all though, the entire idea of Bowser appearing periodically works really well within the short context of the game. For a standard-length Mario, I'm not sure if I'd want to deal with something like Bowser for the entirety of it. But for a 3-hour game, it works perfectly, whilst also being a way to address some of the other problems. My only major criticism with Fury Bowser are these dumb blocks, which undermine the entire design. The coolest idea behind Bowser is that he ramps up the tension on literally whatever the player is currently doing, creating a dynamic playthrough each time. However, because these blocks exist, the optimal thing to do whenever he spawns is to walk up to one and wait. Wait and simply stare at Bowser until he finally does an attack and gives you the shine. It really removes any tension, and isn't that exciting of an activity in the first place? Ironically, the Lucky Island in the postgame is a way better execution of a shine you can only get while Bowser is around, since you have to actually race towards it. The next time I play through this game, I think I'll just ignore the blocks, just to see what kind of dynamic gameplay Bowser could create, which is something I want to point out. I will definitely be replaying this game again. I've focused a lot on its faults, but overall Bowser's Fury is a great time. It has some great levels, and its extra short length combined with the seamless world makes playing through it a blast. It's a cool experiment that makes me wonder about the future of Mario. Which is what the rest of this video is dedicated to, the next 3D Mario. I've been thinking long and hard on this one, and I've got a couple of predictions which I think could be right on the money. First off, of course the world's going to be continuous, like I already brought up. The only other thing I want to say on this front is that Odyssey was already going in this direction. Of course, it already lacked a hub world, and during its postgame, you're also able to use the paintings to travel from kingdom to kingdom, without ever interacting with the Odyssey. Obviously, the paintings are their own load screen, but not interacting with any menus gives it a vaguely seamless feel, indicating the developers have been interested in this direction for a bit. Next, I'm predicting the world is going to be a lot more dense. The individual levels are going to be closer to Mario Odyssey ones than the ones in Bowser's Fury, and on top of that, they're going to be closer together. Connections between levels will be short platforming challenges, and you might even be able to find unintended skips and tricks because of the proximity of the levels. Not everywhere will be available from the start, and you'll unlock new areas in a linear order. Finally, I think it's going to take place entirely in the Mushroom Kingdom. I know that sounds like a joke, but think about it for a minute. When it comes to the 3D platformers, we haven't actually had that many primarily set there. We see it in Galaxy and Odyssey, but it's not the focus. The only exceptions are 64 and 3D Land, where, for one reason or another, both are pretty abstract depictions of the place. However, my main reason for thinking this is the movie. Now, I'm not saying they're planning to make Mario look like this. What I am saying is the environmental design of the movie presents such a vivid picture of the world, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Nintendo wants to try and capture that in a game. So many times while watching the movie, I couldn't help but think about how cool it would be to walk around some of its locations. I am so confident that at least 2 of these 3 predictions will be correct, that I'm going to make a bet. If I'm correct, I will put this image of Bowser pointing as an emote on my Discord server. But if I am incorrect, I will make a video on the new Mario, and in that video, I will periodically bring up Bowser's Fury, except I will vocally refer to it as Bowser's a Furry, and I will spell it like that in the script, so that way even in the captions, it will be spelled as F-U-R-R-Y. I'm only doing this because my livestream chat did this for the entirety of the playthrough. This bet is high risk and basically no reward, so if you want to see how it concludes, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any of your own predictions for the next Mario, be sure to comment them down below. I'm genuinely curious. Thanks for watching.